Are we, in this time of mercy, are we ignoring the obvious? But first, we start with our mission.
With firm faith, I believe and profess everything that the Catholic Church teaches. But for many reasons, the fullness of that message hasn't been getting out lately. What if we, together, set out to learn the faith, to live the faith, and to share this faith, like missionaries of old? What would the world look like in 100 years?
Are we ignoring the obvious and rejecting this time of mercy? Welcome, I'm Brad Shapizi. Well, the consensus yesterday was that I should not go fishing. So I just went out to the garage and stared at my fishing equipment, daydreaming, pretending. It was pretty sad, and I'm blaming all of you. But today, I want to look at this time of mercy. What does this all mean, and are we ignoring it? To start out, I want you to think back to when we were kids, 10, 11, maybe 12. Do you remember walking home from school? You were walking down the sidewalk and you could see them right ahead. There was no way around them. You had to walk right through them. Those guys with the black leather jackets and the blue jeans and the greasy hair. You remember those guys, right? As you got closer, they stared at you. What do? Just try to ignore them? Just walk right past. But all of a sudden, one of them steps into your path and stops you, looks you dead in the eye, and says, "Hey man, are you cool? Prove that you're cool." He puts up his hand, holding out a cigarette. It's a pencil. If you're cool, show us you're cool. Smoke this. Trembling in fear, you look all around. All the neighborhood kids are staring at you. You know exactly what they're thinking. They want to know if you're cool. Then you see her. That girl from across the street that you've had a crush on for years. But she's never noticed you. She's looking at you. Her expression tells you exactly what she's thinking. "Oh, don't let me down. Please, be cool." Did you smoke that cigarette? Did you give into peer pressure? Or did you let that girl down? What was her name? Wasn't it Kim? Kim Helmgard. You disappointed her. This is all your fault. You should be ashamed of yourself. Whatever happened to Kim? She grew up and became a reporter for USA Today. This is her latest masterpiece. Headline: "This is what China did to beat the crisis. Experts say America couldn't handle it." Kim. Before I start to infer meaning in Kim's headline, you tell me, does this headline infer that America is not cool enough to do what China does? Am I going too far? Well, the headline doesn't say, experts say America would never stand for that here. It says, experts say America couldn't handle it. Kind of like peer pressure. America isn't cool, like China is cool. So what cool things does China do that your ex, Kim, thinks America is not cool enough for? Well, they did door-to-door health checks, forcibly isolating residents, even, catch this, even separating parents from young children. Drones hovered above the streets, yelling at people to get inside and scolding them for not wearing face masks. Facial recognition software linked to a mandatory phone app that color-coded people based on their contagion risk, deciding who could enter shopping malls, subways, cafes, and other public spaces. Sounds like a utopia. Video footage showed Chinese authorities in that area welding doors shut to entire apartment buildings with residents inside to enforce quarantine. Why wouldn't those people obey? Does Kim believe that peer pressure will convince Americans to abandon every single advancement of Western culture since ancient times? Does this article not infer that we would be better off under the totalitarian rule of Caesar? Do you see this theme ever present in the media's criticism at every presidential news conference? Almost every question is, Mr. President, how come you haven't done this? Or how come you haven't nationalized that? Or how come you haven't commanded such and such? I just want him to say, hey, this is America. This isn't the Soviet Union. That's not the way we, a free people, respond to a crisis, especially a crisis created by a totalitarian regime. If you are actually truly of the belief that totalitarianism will fix us, that's what plane tickets are for. But there's a fallacy in the whole argument. The headline says China beat the virus. Did it? Is that true? The cases in China got to 80,000 and then they just stopped. How's that possible? However, despite them getting to 80,000 and stopping, there's these headlines. From Bloomberg, China concealed the extent of the virus outbreak, U.S. intelligence says. From LifeSite, U.S. intelligence reports claims that China concealed the number of cases. From Bloomberg, urns from that province prompt new questions of virus's death toll. Outside one funeral home, trucks shipped in 2,500 urns on both Wednesday and Thursday. That's 5,000. Another picture published shows 3,500 urns. Now, I know I'm a high school dropout and everything, but I add that up to be 8,500. We'll save this one for a moment. So my question for USA Today is, did you believe those numbers reported by China were only 80,000? If so, why? This is going to get a little harsh here, and I apologize in advance. But USA Today is a professional news organization, right? On the other hand, there's me, here, with none of their credentials and none of their experience. Remember, I'm a high school dropout. I have nothing but a laptop, a camera, a microphone, a light, and a very small YouTube channel. And last week on this show, I said that on December 30th through January 1st, doctors reporting the illness are reprimanded for doing so and told not to spread information about it. On January 1st, an official at the Health Commission ordered the labs which had already determined the virus was similar to SARS to stop testing samples and destroy existing samples. From January 11th to the 17th, the Health Commission insisted that there were no new cases, and on January 14th, they announced that there was no evidence of human-to-human transition. Now add to all of that from last week, this new headline from Fox News that the Chinese doctor who first raised the alarm has vanished. Now, how did I find those things with my GED, but USA Today did not? I'm going to resist the temptation to conclude that you did not miss those details, but that you omitted those details intentionally. Instead, putting forth this "you're not cool enough for communism" propaganda. Father Charles Armajon predicted in the end times the press, freed from every restraint, disseminates the most subversive doctrines and deadliest poisons in 1,000 organs. Hey, FYI, communism is a deadly poison, and this article disseminates it. Father Armajon goes on in a quote that should cause you to tremble. The day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. It will come at a time when the human race, sunk in the uttermost depths of indifference, will be far from thinking about punishment and justice. Divine mercy will have exhausted all its resources and means of action. How can that be? How can God's mercy have exhausted all of its resources and means of action? Isn't God's mercy infinite? Well, yes, it is, but man's free will is not. In the time of Noah, Scripture says that all the thoughts of their hearts were wicked. And like Father Armajon says, the human race will be far from thinking about punishment and justice. So even in the time of Noah, the sight of him constructing the ark was not enough to convince men to change their hearts. And that ark should have been a great sign of God's mercy, because through the ark, mankind was saved. Today, this crisis, whatever it means, long-term, short-term, whatever, it should first of all be a sign of God's mercy, that each of us have this time to look into our hearts and to change what needs to be changed. This is a time of mercy, of penance, of prayer. But unfortunately, some people are using this as an opportunity to further wickedness. Father Armajon says, the revolution boldly raises its standard against religion, property, and family. It saps the foundations of social structure and mounts its attacks against us simultaneously on every front. So stay firm in the faith, because the enemy is attacking on every front. Use this time for prayer and penance. Remember, chastisement is penance for stubborn people. Now, I'm going back to the garage to stare at my fishing equipment and dream. Tomorrow, we'll end our reflection on Noah and the flood. Your homework is to reflect on Genesis chapter 8, verse 16. Click here to watch yesterday's video. And remember, you can't give what you don't have. So we're here to help you to learn the faith, to live the faith, and to love the faith, so that you can get out there and share the faith with a hurting world that needs it now more than ever. Can we live without the Mass and the sacraments?